Hey gamers, this is Rob with ZborGaming, back with another weapon guide. This is a series where we give you a variety of information with regards to the weapons in Modern Warfare. We have infographics including statistics, attachment unlock levels, recoil, loadouts, and more. So go ahead, stick around, and let's get started. So today we are looking at the HDR sniper rifle. So this is unlocked at level 11 and has a max level of 37. This is a very good sniper rifle. As far as the camo requirements in the bottom left, this is standard across the sniper and marksman rifle categories. If we look at the base stats on the HDR, it does 214 damage to the head, 112 to the chest, 102 to the stomach, and 91 to the limbs in its base damage range, which is 0 to 100 meters. This does have the longest base damage range of any weapon in the game. As far as the magazine size, it's 5 bullets, has a very slow fire rate of 42 RPM, and a slow ADS speed of 617 milliseconds. As far as the reload time, it's about 2.7 seconds base reload, and you can speed that up with sleight of hand to just under 2 seconds. Up here in the upper right, we have all of the attachments listed out for the HDR, as well as all of the unlock levels. So if you want to take a look at this infographic in more detail, head on over to my website, ZborGaming.com, and I'll leave a link in the description below to the infographics that are listed here. Also on my page, I've got a page for the HDR, and it has a variety of these infographics as well. So definitely check that out and hit that link in the description. We have a couple loadout suggestions here. I'm not going to touch on them now because I touch on these in a lot more detail later on in the video. So let's keep on moving here. So same loadouts I had on the prior page. I've got one for Ground War, one for Warzone, and I got a couple more which I discuss later in the video, and we'll get to those. As far as some advanced statistics you need to know about with regards to the HDR, it only has one drop-off range, and that's at 100 meters. So it does pretty much about the same damage regardless. The one thing you want to note here is in the stomach, that drop-off goes from 102 to 99. And the big key with the HDR is in Warzone. It actually has 250 damage to the head in Warzone, which means on a fully armored target that will be a one-shot kill. So regardless of the damage ranges, etc., this gun will always be a 1 or 2 shot kill, and I have a detailed breakdown of all the weapon damage in a following slide here. As far as the drop-off ranges, these will change depending on some of the attachments. If you put that lightweight suppressor, it'll drop by 25% down to 75 meters. The monolithic suppressor will increase it by 11% up to 111. Movement speed is 87%. Very, very slow strafe speed. I think it's the lowest in the game at 23%. We'll go through the recoil pattern here in detail in a couple of slides, but it does go up to the right, and this gun does not recenter, so be aware of that. Lastly, the pistol swap time here is about 684 milliseconds. As far as some of the special attachments for the HDR, it's got 3 barrels, and these are very interesting here. The 26.9 HDR increases that damage range by 36% out to 136 meters. It also, basically any range, if you pretty much put the reticle on your opponent, you will kill them. It has a Now, as far as some of the negatives, it has 5 frames slower ADS speed and hurts your movement speed by 4%. The bull barrel over here has a dramatic recoil improvement, and we will touch on that in one of the coming slides, but it comes with massive penalties. A damage range reduction, 8 frames slower ADS speed, and 7 frames slower movement speed. There's another bull barrel, a little shorter, also has a pretty dramatic recoil improvement, and you'll see that here coming up soon, with about half of the penalties that the 26-inch barrel has. The 7-round mags increases your ammo capacity, and it really does not affect your ADS speed, which is good, with a minor movement speed penalty. And the 9-round is about the same, but it doubles that movement speed penalty, and it does slow your ADS speed by about 2 frames. There are only 5 attachments you can use on this weapon to speed your ADS time up. I've got them listed here. However, I got a whole nother slide dedicated to this. So on the left here, you have all the ADS speeds for the attachments that affect ADS. One to note here is this Merc Thermal Optic says that it helps your ADS. It doesn't. Xclusive Ace also did a video on this showing that this is actually slower. So here, that TAC laser, the FTAC Stalker Scout, are pretty much the only 2 attachments you can equip here to speed up that ADS speed. And there are a couple of optics as well that will speed that up, those lower zoom optics. As far as your recoil control, I've got those attachments listed here as well. There aren't a whole lot of them, and we'll go through that here on the next couple slides. As far as that base recoil pattern on the right, you can see that at 50 meters there's a substantial jump, and you can see the last bullet actually went over the house here that I usually shoot at if you've seen my other weapon studies. Closer at 25, you can see that cuts that about in half, and at 18 meters, definitely cuts that down. Again, though, most people aren't sniping at 18 meters. So keep in mind that if you're at those longer ranges, there's a substantial vertical jump in the recoil. So if we look at that damage, in hardcore, this is basically a one-shot kill, regardless what range you're at, where you hit them. In base multiplayer and Warzone, Warzone with someone you're killing with no armor plates on them, it's pretty much going to be a one-shot kill under 100 meters unless you're hitting them in the limbs. And then over 100 meters, you'll only get that one-shot kill if it's to the head and to the chest. A fully armored in Warzone. Now keep in mind this here, that 214, that would be 214/250 because in Warzone that would be doing 250. But either way, it's still a one-shot kill regardless. A fully armored person in Warzone will still be a one-shot kill to the head, but if you don't hit him in the head, it's a 3-shot kill, and it's going to take you almost 3 seconds to kill them. So that's why it's very important that if you're in Warzone, you're aiming for that headshot with this gun. If not, you want to have a pretty trusty secondary, especially if that enemy is within firing range. So if we go ahead and take a look here at the, this here is the amount of idle sway on the HDR. You can see it floats around quite a bit. This is at 25 meters. And you can also see the fairly slow aim down sight speed. Here you can see as you fire the weapon how it does not recenter very well, and it jumps quite a bit when you shoot it. As far as the reload speed, again you can see around 3 seconds, a little more. So we did all this testing here on KHANDOR Hideout. For the majority of the test, I did it at 25 meters. I also did a couple of shots at 50 like I showed in that prior. Now here again you can see these base damage recoil at range. At 50 meters this thing jumps several feet, so you're probably going to have to scope out, scope back in if you want to get on target. So if we look at some of the other attachments, the muzzles and the underbarrel that affect the recoil, here you have the base recoil. You can see that the muzzle brake and the compensator do help with some of that recoil control. The compensator looks like it cuts about 30% out, which is pretty nice. I did the bipod in crouched, prone, and mounted, all at 25 meters here. And you can see for the most part, there wasn't a whole lot of difference between the 3. Prone was probably maybe the best. Either way, they're all about the same. But the bipod did cut out some of that vertical recoil control, which is good. If we go ahead and look at the barrels, this here is where it starts to get interesting. So that 6.9-inch Pro barrel, you can see, did cut some of that vertical recoil out, which is good, but you still will have a pretty substantial jump after that first shot. That 26.0 Bull barrel, basically there is no jump at all when you shoot. It's very tight, but again, it comes with those massive penalties, so be aware of that. The 17.2 inch bull barrel, you can see, probably cuts 60 to 70% of the total vertical recoil out, which is good, with half the penalty here. And frankly, I would probably take the 17.2 inch barrel over the 26. Keep in mind too here that on the side we have the base range damages. That 26 inch also cuts 25% out of your base damage range too. So again, not quite sure why you would even want to use that. So went ahead and took a look at a couple of loadouts. So this ground war setup is the setup we had up front. Now this is a good balanced setup. Has that 26.9 inch HDR barrel to get that 36% boost in your damage range. Plus it has some mobility with that tack laser and the Stalker Scout. The other two attachments which help with your ADS speed. So it's just a good balanced setup, good for ground war. The setup you want to pretty much run for Warzone, you'll have that monolithic suppressor. That's important because you want to stay off the minimap. Stealth is very important in Warzone. Also has that thermal sniper scope. This will help you pick up those targets even if maybe you don't see them in a bush or they're hiding somewhere. You'll pick them up with the thermal scope. Again, you get that added damage range with the HDR Pro, and the tack laser will help a little with your ADS speed. And you can see here that this loadout performed quite well as far as recoil as well. Now, I put a pure mobility build. If you want to try to build this to be as fast as you possibly can, putting all the attachments in as far as ADS speed, you'll get this ADS and mobility build here. So that includes that VLK optic. The bipod doesn't have any ADS effect. The Stalker Scout and the tack laser both help reduce. And then the 7-round mag, again, that also did not have an ADS effect, and you pick a couple extra rounds up. So on the whole, this is a good build if you want mobility. You can see here the base recoil, it is higher than, but you gain that with some of the extra ADS speed. On the whole though, I don't really recommend, if you want to run and gun, there's tons of other guns in the game you could pick over this one. And frankly, if you want a quick scope, you're probably better off using the AX50. So this last build here is a fun one. I called this the camping build. This is for those players who basically want to sit mounted in a window frame the whole game, get those 3 to 5 kills, waiting for people to come along. I don't suggest this build, but again, it's a fun build. We have that 26-inch bull barrel, basically going to be spot on your recoil. You can pick any optic you choose. You can go for a long-range optic, short-range optic, that bipod to help mount on that door frame you're going to be guarding so closely. 9-round mag, so you have plenty of bullets to shoot off in case you miss your targets. And then that F-Tac Champion, which helps a little bit with your aim stability. So I've got these various loadouts here on the pages. Again, this is the ground war build. Here is the Warzone setup. Again, this has that stealth, that longer range damage, the thermal scope, so you can pick up that target acquisition. All perfect for Warzone. This is your fastest ADS setup you can get with the HDR. If you want, you could also swap that lightweight suppressor out for the bipod if you want to get stealthy with this build. And lastly, we have your camper build. This is for you guys who like to sit in a window all game and get those 3 to 5 kills. This is just the loadout for you. Frankly, it has such low mobility, you probably won't be moving much anyway. So, with that, that's all I have today on the HDR. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope some of the loadouts helped you as well as some of the information. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. We'll have another weapon guide coming out soon. In fact, I think the next one I got coming out is going to be on the AK-47. I got some fun builds in there as well. So go ahead, comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and we'll see you later.